Hi, everyone. This is Coach DeMarco back with Kyle Elmendorf from Lead 'em Up for the second part where Kyle is talking about creating a positive culture within your program. So I'm going to let Kyle jump right into it, and he's going to talk about point 6, which is teamwork. And I'm super excited to hear about this one. So, Kyle, thanks again for joining me.
Yeah, John, pleasure to be here. Looking forward to sharing these last couple of points with coaches. And coaches, again, feel free to reach out with any questions you may have. If I can share any resources with you, it'd be my pleasure too. So Kyle@leademup.com, or you can find me on social media at K_Elmendorf. I'd love to help you out with anything that you may have. So jumping back into what we were talking about last time is key here, point number 6 to building that culture of success is teamwork and harmony. And, we won't get into like cliche sayings, any of that, but I think there's some really practical things that you can do to create that. And every team, will get in there, and I'm guilty of it early in my career. And we've all seen it at some point, but, a team will be breaking the huddle. Everyone put their fist in there and team on 3, 1, 2, 3, team. That's great. You say it in the huddle, but are you really a team? How do we know? And so one of these things that we want to challenge ourselves to think at is direction and focus can go a long way in that. And so really it has to start with us. It runs downhill, but we is greater than me. And so one of the things that kind of goes with all of this is in that vision, you have to cast it to your players and to your assistants and anybody that holds a stake. So administration, AD, parents, boosters, whoever, they need to see that your vision for the program is not necessarily just about me as a coach. It's not about putting my name on the court. It's not about putting records up or anything like that. It's about the people in the program. And so what we want to do is cast that vision and make sure we're always focusing on that. And so this is my personal opinion. I know some people don't agree with me on this, but I think back to when I was playing, it was newspaper clips that would come out on like Saturday mornings. Now it's instant in Twitter and all that. But one of the things that I was fortunate through the coach that I look up to most who I played for is what he always stressed was, let's look at I'll use football as the example, but obviously basketball can substitute in there, is if you're getting interviewed, it's not about you, it's about the people that got you there. So if you're a quarterback or a lineman, you better shout out your O-line. If you're a point guard, you probably should give some love to your bigs for scoring when you get them the ball, or if you're a big for the guards for getting you the ball. And so one of the things I think we should be intentional and be cautious of as a coach is when we're putting up post-game Twitter comments or a post, I would advise against putting up the stats for 1 or 2 players and putting up tonight's star, tonight's headline, because if I'm the 7th person and I look after the game and maybe I only got in 10 minutes, but I played my all, I give my all in practice, but the only recognition now, this is what the kids are seeing these days, is through Twitter or Instagram. I put it up on a story and I shout out so-and-so, 20 points, 3 steals, and 6 assists. And I don't get my role is not that, but I'm not celebrated for it. So one of the things that I made a point when I was a head coach is I never gave a post or put a post out there that was specific about one individual after a game. Now, if they got player of the week for the metro area, or if they got all conference, or they were honorable mention, or they're all state, or they signed a letter of intent, by all means, shout that out, give that player praise. But I think the we versus me, it really has to be intentional in how we promote our program these days on social media. It can't just be about 1 or 2 players. I would make it more about the vision of the program. And so when we talk as a team going to our focus, it's always about team goals. We should never be focused on, so-and-so going into this game, we know that, John's got to get 30 points or we're not going to do very well. He's 30 points away. Those things come and they'll happen if the team goals take care of themselves. And then the other thing is focusing on character. Is for me personally as a coach, is I would rather have a team that is maybe middle of the road, 500, that's filled with people that work hard and that have sound character, rather than a talented team that might go 20-5 but has no character and no work ethic. That to me would be no joy of coaching. And so those are just things that we've got to speak to and constantly build up in our program, is if we want to focus on teamwork, then we've got to focus on team things and team concepts and people of character. We've got to build that up in everything that we do.
I love Kyle, I love the we is greater than me thing, and we see that a lot. And when I first became a head coach, the newspaper, they call me up on the phone and they want to talk about specific players. And we're a couple weeks into the season, and they're asking, can you talk about this one or that one? And so I did a rundown every single varsity player, and I said to them, I'm like, look, either I want to talk, just focus on the team, or I'm going to tell you a characteristic of each player and what they offer. And the guy's like, I love it. I'll do it. So I went through and I gave them, the 12 varsity players, and we went through each player and who's going to be a great rebounder, who's going to bring this, who's going to, and much of it, I was more of a defensive-minded coach, so much of it was focused on defense and rebounding. But I went through every single player, and we built a good relationship, me and that particular reporter, because after that initial conversation. But I always tried to do that. So I really appreciate you bringing up the point of focusing on the team, not focusing on one player. Not every reporter is going to allow you to talk about your entire team. It's
Right.
not really feasible in every article, but that was something I did that was pretty funny. We had a good laugh afterwards, me and the reporter. But he did it, and you know what? It built, from a culture standpoint, early in the season. The players saw that and they're like, "Gee, we're all in the paper," because they're all that important to the program. It wasn't about, we had one really good player, and he just kept hammering me with questions about that player, and I just wasn't. That's not my style. So I can really appreciate you bringing that up too.
No, I applaud you for doing that. I mean, think about that too, of what you said for coaches that are listening, is if you listen to part one and we talked about how do you get parents and community members on board. Well, if you've got a coach that comes in there and is already highlighting and celebrating the contributions that each player is going to make and what they bring to the team, I love this coach right now. Like, I would want my kid to play for him. So that's a great bit of advice that you just shared for coaches. I hope they took that down. That was excellent. So one practical thing that we can do here for teamwork, how do we build that up, right? We can say about plays and all that, but teamwork is in basketball, right? You can give this your players, if you can tee this exercise up, is we never know when your number is going to be called, but you got to be ready when it's called, right? What if someone gets into a situation where they grab a rebound, land on a foot, and they're done? Now someone else has got to take their place. Or you go into double overtime and someone fouls out. You haven't been playing the whole game, but now your number's called and you got to win a game in double overtime. So in this exercise movie script, we really kind of teach this concept of being ready at any given moment. And you can't just, it's not a flip of the switch. You can't get ready. You have to stay ready. So what we do is we break teams up into different groups. For a basketball team, if you're just doing maybe your varsity team, or I would encourage you to bring everybody in the program together, split them off into different groups. So if I'm just saying my varsity team, you got 12 players, you get 2 groups of 6, and or you can break it into 3 groups of 4, whatever suits you. You give the players a prompt, and you give them a couple minutes where they're in isolation, they're in a different room, or they're in a hallway, and what they have to do is they get 2 to 3 minutes to come up with a movie script based on the prompt that you give them. And then what happens is you bring that team back up in front of the rest of the team. But now you're going to start by saying, okay, this is the prompt that you were given. We're going to repeat the prompt, and then I'm going to point to someone that's lined up from that team. And they don't know who I'm going to call on. But when I call on somebody, they have to pick up where the previous person left off. And so if they don't have that movie script memorized, their team fails. They lose and they're out of the running. And so we'll give teams rewards and prizes for winning here. But this goes back to, again, just that whole idea of I've got to be locked in and ready to go. And I've got to be in it for my teammates because I'm going to be called on. I don't know when, but I got to do my job. And so this is something that you can reference throughout the year with your team on being a good teammate and staying ready and staying prepared.
Kyle, can I just ask you're giving so many great examples of team building activities and things that you can do during the season with your team to really help build a positive culture. What was the ratio, just like a guesstimate of time that you spend on these types of activities and building a culture, a positive culture, and incorporating that in with, film and lifting. And I know how important it is. I wanted to have those team building activities as part of our practices, and then also things we did after practice as a team too. But I'm sure a lot of coaches are curious, and I am as well, to hear from you specifically. What's the ratio? Like, how do you fit them in? Is it practice time, after practice? And especially early in the year, how big a part of practice or your schedule are these types of activities?
Great question. I think it's vital. As I went along throughout the years, I would make sure that was always a part of it. And so, speaking for the basketball sense, beginning of the year, I would say our practices for the first 2 weeks, while teams are getting solidified, are usually 2.5 hours to get all that work in. But we would always we would introduce some of these concepts. And then once we got to the point where teams were solidified, then I would have a schedule based upon our exercises and lead them up, what we were going to cover and what we wanted to highlight. And so, excuse me, what I would typically do is once our practices moved to 2 hours, we would hold our sessions usually on the Monday or Tuesday. I always like to do it early in the week. That way I can reiterate the theme throughout the week when we don't have a game. So if we were playing on, we had a game Wednesday, Friday that week, we would first thing after school before practice, we would go through this session. And typically some of them last only 10, 15 minutes. The longest, I think, is usually around maybe 40, 45 minutes. Just depends on what the players do with it. Sometimes you can adjust your schedule. You can put it at the end. But I think devoting 30 to 45 minutes a week on building character and leadership in your team is going to save you so many headaches in the long run. Excuse me. So sometimes when you have a situation where you might not be able to get into a gym or you're sharing a gym, for some of us that coach at smaller schools, this is a great time to go to a classroom and work on this. And then before you even start your film study is go into an exercise, and then you could talk about examples in film where you see it played out through the game. So as the season goes along, the time on the court has to decrease because they're playing so many games to where this naturally leads into it. But I would say always schedule it early in the week, 30, 45-minute block it out before or after practice. And once you get into the habit of the players will ask you, we get players all the time that'll say, hey, coach, are we doing lead 'em up this week? When are we doing it this week? We got to make sure we get it in. So that's kind of how I kind of morphed that into the schedule the past couple of years.
If I'm coaching today and now with 3 little ones, I'm not coaching specifically, I'm doing more of this stuff, which has been great from spending time with my family. But if I'm coaching today, I am involved with Lead 'em Up. I'm working with you guys because I did do team building, and I really think did a nice job, me and my staff and the players, the families, building a positive relationship and building a positive culture. But these types of activities that you're sharing with us, and again, I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg, team building and leadership capacity. These are the things that if I'm a parent and my kid's playing for a coach that's doing these types of things, if I'm an athletic director, right now I'm an assistant principal. So from an administrator's perspective, I want coaches that are doing these types of things. So I hope the coaches that are watching this are taking these ideas. But if I'm coaching and I get back into it when my kids get bigger, you guys are going to be probably the first people I call because this stuff is awesome. And I appreciate you giving us some of these ideas. And the wheels are spinning in my head, things that I would be doing as a coach as a result of this. So, thanks for all that you're sharing right now. And I know we still have one more point that you're going to get
Yeah.
to. Thank you.
No, great. I'm glad I could be of help and be of service, hopefully to many. And really, everything is about this, but it can't be understated enough. I think the core of Lead 'em Up and why it came to be is really kind of goes back to one of our mission statements that we've seen play out time and time again is coaches want to see their players have leadership, and they want the leaders needed to win. And one of the things that would always frustrate me early on as a coach would be I would hear the things like, and I'm sure you've heard this before, John, is, well, we just don't have good leaders this year. Our seniors are terrible leaders. And when I would hear that, I would be, I would recognize that as true, but then in the back of my mind, I'd be like, well, why aren't they good leaders? Because I believe, and it's a foundational belief of Lead 'em Up, that leadership is a skill. And any skill can be learned and it can be taught. Some are more naturally inclined to be leaders. That's true. Just like some people can walk into a weight room and automatically throw 200 pounds on the bar and bench, they were gifted that way. But some people can learn over time how to lift weights, and we can learn over time how to be leaders. And this is why we exist. And I think any good program, it's not just about developing your players in the program to be better athletes. It's what are you doing to help them succeed away from the court and when you're gone from your program. That's the true legacy of a culture of success and a program of success is those people then want to come back and pour into the younger ones. They take pride in that. And so here, I break it down kind of like this, is why leadership. And some people will argue, and we get this argument, or I should say objection sometimes, is, well, we're good. We've had success. We've won games, might even won a state championship. And then the counter to that would be like, that's awesome. We applaud you for that. But what if you added that component? I don't think anybody's going to argue that leadership is a bad thing for your team or people of character are a bad thing. So I say underneath the why there, you lose without it because you're not reaching your full potential. And I think that's one of the things I'd like to bring up for coaches that are out there is I would just applaud you wherever you're at. Because I came from a program to where I coached middle school JV level basketball. I was assistant on varsity for boys, then was a head girls basketball coach for 8 years. And then now this year was an assistant varsity coach down here in Florida. And I've coached every type of athlete you can coach, been a part of great teams and mediocre teams and even a few bad teams along the way. And one particular year we were struggling. And I wasn't used to having a losing record, and it was really eating at me. And I remember calling one of my high school coaches and being like, I'm really struggling with this. And I remember earlier in the week, I had listened to an interview with the great Rick Majerus, and they were kind of talking about him. And one of the things that he said is he was fortunate never to have a losing season. And here I am in the middle of a losing season. I'm like, I must not be that good. And thankfully, that person reminded me that some of your best coaching is going to be in the middle of a losing season when you don't have great players or great teams. And so I think if I can encourage coaches more than anything else, it would be you might be a better coach than the person holding a state championship at the end of the season because you did more with the talent that you were given and you got them to reach that ceiling. And those players cared about your program. They loved it. And they lived and breathed your principles, whereas someone else might just got a bunch of transfers that came in there and they won a state championship. That's life. But if we're really about the core of what we want to be as coaches, then that's our foundational why, and that pulls us back into it. The next thing, why do we want to teach leadership and character to our athletes? Because not all of them are going to go pro. In another presentation I have, one of the numbers is less than 3% of high school athletes make it professionally. So if I'm not teaching them how to be a better leader or how to be a better man or woman of character, then what am I doing? Because right now what we're seeing is there is a global cry for leadership across the board, not just one country, not just one state. We're seeing the need for leadership on every single level right now. And I think that's part of our calling as coaches, is using sport to teach life, and bring that out. And like we already mentioned, it can be developed. And we've got the platform and the resources to do it. And it's just about taking the time to make sure it's something you emphasize. So last thing here is just kind of like the saying I've grown pretty fond of is, if it's not me, then who? If it's not us, then who? Who's going to do that? And then that just kind of brings us to, that summary here of have the positive mindset, instill discipline, that it's not a bad thing, that it's a good thing. Have a program that's centered on respect and love. Build trust amongst your staff, amongst your players. Build the desire and the work ethic. Foster teamwork and create leaders. And I think that's going to, lead to a winning culture that lasts a long time.
One of the things that, as I look at that, so many great ideas in there, and just specific looking at leadership at the end, you have those players who jump in and jump on this stuff, and they're, all in, and they have some of that natural leadership ability, right? And I agree 100%. It's a skill that can be developed, because I definitely, thinking about myself, what I was when I was younger to now taking on leadership roles, and how I've grown and continue to grow as a leader. But what do you do with those players who are reluctant to be leaders in the program? And I know you have a lot of different ways that you build that capacity, but just maybe one idea for coaches out there who have a player that just doesn't want, they step back and say, you know what, I don't want to be in that position. How do you encourage that? And what do you do with a player who might be a little bit nervous about taking on that leadership and that ownership?
Yeah, great question. There's a couple things that just automatically jump to mind. The first one is, a lot of times, one of the exercises we have built in that we're really developing out now is teaching kids that it's okay to follow, right? So if you're not necessarily the one that is in front of the team right now, that doesn't mean you have to be right now, but you can learn from that individual, and you can encourage the ones who are leaders. So if I'm that person, which I was really shy growing up, and John, you're the leader, something that I would try to maybe help that person with is, okay, Kyle, you're not the vocal leader, or you're not the one that everyone's looking to right now. But what you can do is affirm John, who is that leader. So how do you do that? Well, when John's talking to the team and he's giving, wisdom, or he's encouraging, or he's showing the leadership, is say, thanks, John, or just affirm him with simple eye contact and a nod of the head that you're receiving the message. So I think you don't have to be that right away. And then the other thing as a coach, it goes into, we could maybe talk on this another time, but our foundational exercise is called the green team. And so what that's built on is, we just want to get more players leaning in that direction, because we kind of break it down between green, gray, and red. Green are the type of players that we want. They're the leaders. They're the people of high character. Gray are the people in the middle. They just kind of go whatever direction the wind's blowing. And red is, toxic. They're the bad apples that, they're great recruiters. They get people on their side because it's like misery loves company, right? And so what we can do as coaches is continue to try to build the green in our players and encourage that and praise that. And so with that is, you might have some people at first who they've never been taught this before. They've never heard this before. But I think it just goes back to affirming them that it's okay to be who you are as a leader and as an individual, and then just celebrate the small wins along the way.
Thanks for that. That's obviously great insight, and I like the way, kind of your approach to that, they don't have to be a leader right away, but there's other things they can do to still have a positive influence on the program. So I think that's great insight for coaches. And I'm thinking about the times right now, and obviously coaches could be, in the spring I got into the weight room with my players, and in the summer we were in the weight room. We had camps and clinics, and we were very involved. And I had a lot of connection with my players, and there was team building built into that. We did an Ironman competition at the end of the summer, and it was just a lot of different things to do. Where coaches are home now and not able to connect face to face with players, do you have any advice for them in ways they can continue to build leadership in their program and also a positive culture? Because let's be honest, if you just took over a team this season and you've started work towards building a positive culture, and now I'm thinking like football coaches, right? If last year was their first year, and now we're getting into critical time for football teams with working out, and they might not have summer activities, and who knows what's going to happen. So what advice do you have for those coaches to connect with their players, to continue to build a positive culture in their programs?
Yeah, great question. And one of the things that, this is, unfortunately, we're all in the same boat right now. And we got to figure out a way to get better, still utilize our time. I think, again, that's what separates the great teams from, teams that aspire to reach that level is right now, when we get back to sports, teams are going to hit the ground running and some are going to be stuck in the mud. And some teams are going to utilize this time to get better and to try to figure out ways, and some aren't. So we know for a fact that, just as any athlete works on their own, the teams that utilize this time and still try to find ways to get better, they're the ones that are going to really hit the ground running once we get out of this break from sports. So a couple suggestions I have. We've got 2 free resources, absolutely free for coaches that I think would be dynamite. And we've had so many people go through it so far, and they're loving it, and we get a lot of positive feedback. You can send me an email. We'll put that up later. I'll give you that address, or you can go to leademup.com/blog, and you'll find these here. But we have a 21-day leadership playbook where we've taken several of our exercises and broken those down into 21 days that you can engage with your players, and it gives them a detailed plan on what to do each day, and it focuses on some of those traits. And so that's a way where teams can hold each other accountable through social media, and the way that now coaches are able to interact with their players and see what they're up to and focus on developing those traits is really something that's great. Again, that's free. 21-day leadership playbook. I would highly, highly encourage you to check that out. Another thing right now, since like you said, we can't get in the weight room. We're fortunate we have one of our regional coaches from Iowa, Tucker Hersberg. He's a certified strength and coach specialist, and he put together an amazing performance program to where he's got it on an Excel sheet, and each week he drops a brand new workout. And so if you go to leademup.com/blog again, you'll click on at-home workout. And what you can do is put your email in there, and you'll automatically get added to the Excel sheet. And everything that he's built the exercise program around requires no weights, and it's designed to specifically enhance speed, strength, flexibility, coordination in your athletes. So it's a great free resource. Highly recommend you have your players go through that right now, because like we said, we can't get into gyms and we can't work on that. So those 2 things are absolutely free. We would encourage coaches to take care of that. And then the next thing that we offer is virtual sessions, which we're starting to see more and more coaches take their teams through. And what they do is that they just go to leademup.com, go to our shop there, and we will take your team through virtual sessions to where we'll all get them on a Zoom call like this. And right now our founder, Adam Bradley, is absolutely killing it with these team sessions, and coaches and players are loving it. And it's a way for them to focus on those ideals and program philosophies and kind of stay in tune with one another. So those are just a couple things. Other than that, what I would do is just text, have a group chat, have a text that everyone's a part of. Maybe download the GroupMe app if you don't already have that, and just have a thread in there where you're checking in on your players, seeing how their family's doing, how they're doing, and just being there for them during this time.
those are all great suggestions, Coach, and free resources. I mean, you can't beat that. And just what you provided to us today, in addition to all those free resources, the workout that people can utilize is awesome, and the 21-day program. So if coaches want to connect, and like I said, if I'm in the game right now coaching a team, I'm reaching out to you guys, especially during this time with the virtual sessions and stuff like that. But if coaches want to reach out, and also if they do want to like sign on with you guys and become a partner, or however it works out, what does that look like? What do they need to do? Do coaches sign up for like a one year? Is it 6 months? So where can they go to? Maybe you can put your email. I think you had it up in the beginning of the presentation, and then also.
Yeah, let me go back to that. I'll put that up there, my email and my social handle. They can reach out to me directly, and I'll get them the information.
Awesome.
But how Lead 'em Up works is a digital subscription can be for a single team, which is $99. But right now in April, we've got 20% off of that. And for athletic programs, we do offer that rate as well. And that's also 20% off of that for a whole athletic program. So if there's any ADs that are out here looking for that, I can get you information, pricing, and all that. But the subscription is good for 1 year. It's all access. You get all of our exercises that are in our vault currently, and we're constantly uploading new exercises every 6 to 8 weeks. We have private Facebook group for our members. We have exclusive webinars. Just this past month, we were fortunate enough to have Brooklyn Nets assistant Adam Harrington on a private webinar for our members. And so we're constantly pouring back into our coaches, through that year-long subscription.
Well, Kyle, thank you so much for your time. And coaches, I hope you enjoyed this. There's so much great information, and reach out to Kyle with any questions, and I would get right in and sign up for Lead 'em Up. There's so many great activities and ways to build leaders in your program. And the thing that I love, Kyle, that you talked about was leadership being a skill, and that you can build leadership capacity in your players. And I know there's, like I keep saying, this is like the tip of the iceberg, and I feel like coaches that sign up are going to get so much more from Lead 'em Up and from you. So thank you again. Really appreciate your time and sharing with coaches.
Yeah, appreciate you, John. Thanks for the opportunity.